أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين الحمد لله رب العالمين. Assalamu alaikum. Really what Sheikh Muslim has just mirrored and shared with us is the foundation of everything, is entering into the Mihrab of your heart, entering into that light, into the presence, into beingness that is everywhere and nowhere. That you enter into that space, so-called space within you, which is beyond time and space. It is a way to cut through the wahm, the illusion of separation, by remembering that Allah is present. And there's nothing other than the presence of that divine reality. And that Allah is watching you. Meaning that there is, that reality is all aware, all encompassingly aware, all hearing, all seeing. And when you reflect on that reality of the all-seeing, then you are ebbing closer to that which is already within you. Because the spark of that one reality, Allah Azza wa Jal, is already within you, as present as the Ruh bil Amri Rabbi, by the order of Allah. And then when you say that Allah is with me, this is an interesting thing to say. If Allah is Allah nur samawati wal ard, Allah, la ilaha illallah, there is no reality except the one reality. Who is the me? What is me? What's the me made of? What is this me? What is this self that says I exist? This is the whole issue right there at the end, where you, if Allah is present within you, then who are you? It evokes the question, it evokes the issue. Yeah. So you have to examine it. Who am I? What am I? Where am I? What is this life for? What is then the overarching narrative that Allah has put into motion when He said to and wanted this creation to come about, and there was a kun fayakun, that the universe came into being in a moment beyond calculation. That is part of who you are. You are a ruh, which is beyond time and space, yet you experience relative space and time, up and down, day and night, the constant flow and multiplicity of duality. There's a saying amongst the people that the multiplicity of action doesn't multiply the actor. It's one actor appearing in multiplicity. And this is something that we have to, as Muslims, and anyone who is on a spiritual path, because being Muslim, what does being Muslim mean? It means someone who submits. Submits to what? submits to the light and the decree and the light and the ever-present God, Allah Azza wa Jal. So it is not an identity. Being a Muslim is not a club. It's not the Boy Scouts, or it's not a dietary, culinary path. It's not a culture. It's a reality, a teaching that requires you to recognize that you have in you this relative being, this I, and that there is, just opposed to that, so to speak, this one reality beyond time and space. And so where do you fit in there? And Islam is there to be like a filter and a method, you may say, a vehicle to enter into, so that you submit that sense of separation, that illusion rather of separation, so that you begin to realize and actualize the true one light within you. In Islam, there is nothing to gain. And what I mean by that is that you cannot gain the truth. You cannot acquire truth, because it's already there within you. What we need to do is let go of the illusion of the shadows of who we think we are, and what our concepts, our mind, our identity, what we identify with, what we're attached to. All these things are what Islam, the practice of Islam, calls you to do. Like, I'm going to get into decree and destiny here in a moment. Because this is to do with decree and destiny also. That when you do your salat, for instance, and I wanted through hopefully the next day or two, talk more about this, but your salat al-miraj al-mu'min, I'm sure everybody's heard that before. The prayer is like the miraj of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he went through all of the heavenly and spheres and throughout existence and beyond. When he went to the Sidrat al-Muntaha, and there, all these things you have to look at as a story containing incredible metaphor and implications for your own self. So going to the Sidrat al-Muntaha means that you've gone to the edge of creational reality, creational relativity. You have gone as far as you can go to where you have to, at that point, leave behind all concepts of self and creational attachment and referencing. That's why, at the point of the Sidrat al-Muntaha, the Prophet, in a metaphorical way, spoke to Jibril and said, "Come with me." And Jibril said, "I can't go any further." Because his creation, his maqam, his station and reality was limited to his creation, to Jibril's creation. But the Prophet ﷺ has something within him which is beyond the angels. That's why there's the saying amongst us that man can be lower than the animals and higher than the angels. What is that higher than the angels? Is the presence of the Ruh bil Amri Rabbi, the light of lights, the light which is beyond time and space. So when the Prophet ﷺ went to the Sidrat al-Muntaha in this way, he then passed beyond the Sidrat al-Muntaha to the Qaba wa Khathaini, to the two bowls lengths. Now this is spoken about in many references, that it is not really a measurement, because it's a measurement that is so close that it's not even measurable. And in Surat al-Najm, the way it plays out in the description of the Prophet ﷺ going to the Sidrat al-Muntaha and beyond, it says that, and then we revealed to his heart, it says in Surah Al-Najm, what we revealed, and then there's a silence in the ayah. And the next ayah says, and the heart did not lie by what it saw. So this is something which is indicating to us that we have a potential within us, a mandate really, stamped within us from the overarching narrative of Allah's creation to accept our limitations, live within the bounds of the modeling of the prophetic personality and sunnah, sunnah, but at the same time to fly beyond that and enter into a state of being which is beyond that, which is beyond the Sidratul Muntaha. And that's the potential for every single human being. We are all created from nafsin wahida, one self. Well, think of that for a moment. It means that if we're all created from one self, then the Prophet's ruh is the same as our ruh. We each have the same potential and light within us as the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We cannot have his maqam. We cannot be prophets like he was. But the potentiality that is present within every human being, the element and light beyond time and space, is there with you. Allah ma'i. Allah is with me. Allah is present. Where is he present? It's not from on a cloud or a mountain above, Thor or Odin or whatever it is, this metaphoric thing. He is beyond description, beyond time, beyond space, beyond place. So when we do practices like what Sheikh Muslim was just doing, we have to try to ultimately maximize that experience by breaking out of the idea of this Allah's watching me as though He's watching me from somewhere, present with me as though He's sitting next to me, although that's a good beginning, and then dissolve, as opposed to dissolving yourself in that reality, in that beingness. When you say Allah's with me, die. Let go of yourself. Let go of who you are. Let go of who you think you are. Let go of the thoughts that are pouring into your head. Let go of everything that comes to you at that moment and attempt to be as the light you are within your heart, at the core of your being. So that's essentially what Islam is. And all the prophets, especially the Ul Adam, the last five, including especially including Sayyidina Isa, Jesus. Allah in the Quran describes Sayyidina Isa as the Ruh Allah. He's the Spirit of God on earth. And that's a very important title that Allah Azza wa Jalla has given the Prophet Isa, Jesus. And also Sayyidina Isa will, in the development of this narrative as it comes to a close, there is a teaching that he will come and when the Mahdi is present in the world, and he'll stand with the Mahdi, behind the Mahdi, and support him and be praying with him towards that one and reminding people of that one. So this message has been the same message all through human existence. It's also interesting to realize and to keep in perspective that if you take the whole world, the existence of this planet, for instance, if you looked at it at a clock, starting at 12 o'clock, and bringing it all the way to 5 minutes to 12 in a 24-hour cycle, the majority of that has been the development of and of evolution of plants and dinosaurs and so on. We're just about a minute or two before the cycle starts, the appearance of the human being. So we need to put things in perspective, that there is an overarching narrative that is beyond just our own personal little lives. But even though you look at this in a metaphoric way, that this clock, that we've only been here in this tiny little speck of the earth, which is if you went 2-3 light years in a rocket into the space and you turned around and you tried to find the earth, you wouldn't find it. You'd see it amongst, like a grain of sand amongst billions of grains of sand. But yet, here's the interesting thing. Your life and everything you experience, it's everything for you. You were born. You had parents. You had lives. We all have lives. We have massive, multiple experiences and traumas and good things and bad things, and we all have different fingerprints. We're all unique. It's amazing. We're all unique. Why? Because your uniqueness, your awareness of yourself, your concept of being a whole being that perceives the whole universe is an echo, a reflection of the unique one. That's how we know Allah is one. By knowing that you, me, this thing called me, is unique beyond any compared to anything else. This is how Allah communicates His uniqueness through manifesting and reflecting His uniqueness in you. You are a mirror and a living container of all of the names of Allah, including the unique. And if that's true, then the other thing is true, that Allah said, as we said yesterday, that Allah created this, that He said in a Hadith Qudsi, I was a treasure hidden, wanting to be known, so I manifested this creation to be known. So what does that mean? It means that every single thing in creation, including your whole being, is predicated on a desire, on a love, on a want from the source and creator of all things to be known. To be known and to be worshipped. Now worship, you need to also expand on that. It's not just the ritual prayers, it is all that too, but it's much more. It's entering into what Sheikh Muslim was indicating in this beautiful dhikr, is entering into the beingness of being the fulfillment of Allah's will and desire to be known. That's who you are. Every single thing other than that is secondary, is supportive to that one original desire, one original cause. Everything. No matter what happens in your life, it's for the overall good. It's for the overall potential for each one of us to realize the true purpose and the true reality of who we are. That's what Islam is, in one description. It also makes us behave and all that. But ultimately it is for that, to submit. And the next time I talk, I want to talk about the prayer unpacking the prayer, how the prayer is your burak, your vehicle for this transformative, this transformation to take place within you. The prayer should not be taken for granted. It's really interesting. The prayer so easily can become a ritual, an empty ritual. I did Dhuhr, click, I checked it off. I did Asr, off, got Dhuhr and Asr out of the way, now I can go to the movies or whatever. You know, I know we're all giggling. We all do this, you know. It's because we know it. But we're upside down. We're completely upside down. Everything else is designed so that you stop and do the prayer. And that you enter into the Mihrab of higher consciousness and eventually into the sajda of disappearance. So that you then go to the Sidratul Muntaha when you put your face and your head on the ground. And then you say, Subhana Rabbil A'la, beyond your ability to comprehend the height and the depth and the reality of the one source of all things. That's when you have to let all the sensory go and all the idea of yourself. Subhana Rabbil A'la wa bihamdi. Everything disappear. Leave it. Die. Die in your salat. That is what we are attempting to do as Muslims when we submit and we go and we do the prayer. This comes about individually, uniquely to every single person. Every single person has a unique experience of this. So I'm going to share with you today and as the next few days a couple of stories that embodies some elements of decree and destiny. And again, I want to just clarify, decree is what Allah decrees. There is no other decree. It's what Allah decrees, what He wants. Allahu khairu makirin, Allah is the best of planners. So whatever is the outcome, whatever is this moment right now is by Allah, no doubt. Destiny is your interaction with that reality. Your relative beingness interacting with that. They asked Imam Jafar as-Sadiq, who was a great teacher, one of the teachers of Imam Malik and Imam Abu Hanifa. They asked him, they said, what is the difference between, what is decree and destiny? Is it all decreed or is it destiny? And he just took his hand and he went like this. It's not quite like this and it's not that, right? This is how we are. So even though we can conceptualize in some way that Allah has decreed everything and that everything is by His decree right now at this very moment, yet we still have some sense of interplay with it, interaction with it. And that's an important aspect of human existence, of human life. And that plays out, like I said before, in an individual way with each one of us, uniquely designed. And this is an amazing thing to think about. Imagine the billions and billions and billions of people that have existed. Each one has had a story written for them, which is totally unique and continues to be unique in order for that person to realize the ultimate truth. It's mind-blowing. I wish we would blow our minds. So I'm going to just share with you a story that embodies some of this decree and destiny, and it happened to. It was a personal story, so I want to go into it with a little, as Sheikh Muslim suggested that I do this. So, many years ago, actually, about maybe 35 years ago, I was planning to go to visit my teacher in England. And at that time I was quite young and very zealous about my path, and I was working in Atlanta, Georgia, and I don't know if Yakuta was there or not. Yakuta is sort of my witness of some of these things. So I was going to go to visit my teacher in England, and at that time we had befriended an Aboriginal Indian person from America. His name was Tiku Nur, and he was, I can't remember what tribe he was from, but he had embraced Islam, and we became good friends. And I bought my ticket, and this was a Pan Am. Pan Am was an airline some time ago. Most of you probably don't know. Some of the older gray-headed people here would know. So I bought a ticket on Pan Am, and I was about to leave to go to England. And just before I left, I spoke to my sheikh on the phone. I said, well, I'm going to be there in 3 days. And he said, could you do me a favor? You're not going to say no. I mean, I wasn't going to say no. So I said, yes, whatever you want, Sheikh, I'll do it. He says, bring Tikkun Nur with you, right? I said, I'll do it. Well, I only had enough money for one ticket. So what I did is I took that ticket and I traded it in for 2 standby tickets. And in those days, you could, travel anywhere standby. It was if you could get on. So I got 2 standby tickets, one way, because I didn't have much money. I was just working for this one trip. And we got from Atlanta to Dulles Airport in Washington, D.C. And then in Washington, D.C., we learned that, I think it was the DC-9, it's either the DC-9 or the L-1011, there were 3 crashes in 3 months of the flight. You can look it up in 1970, I think it was 1972 or 1976, 77. So they grounded all the Atlantic flights except for the 747, which meant for us, we are never getting on an aircraft for standby, because all the planes, that were going across the Atlantic, except for the 747, were grounded. And so here we were, Tikkun Nur and I, in Dulles Airport in Washington, D.C., no money, no way to change our ticket to regular tickets because we had no money. We had no money for anything. We were just going fi sabilillah, and 2 young, journeyers to go there, and we were stuck in the airport. So we wound up staying there for 3 days, living in the airport. We had nowhere to go. And the people there at the airport, the restaurant people started to come to know us, and we had this one Mexican restaurant who really kind of was empathetic toward us, and every night he would save a big packet of food for us. So he'd feed us, and we would use the bathrooms to wash up and the seats to sleep on at night, and we didn't know how we were going to get there. On the 4th day rather, on the afternoon of the 4th day, I was sort of now taking my regular sort of constitutional walk through the airport, and I got to the terminal where the Concorde flights used to go. Now, Concorde was a supersonic jet. They don't do it anymore. But it's a supersonic jet that flew from Washington, D.C. to London in 3.5 hours. Yeah. They don't do it anymore because it's too polluting and it's too noisy and it destroys the environment. But I just happened to find myself at the runway or the gangway, the terminal, where the Concorde had just landed. And when the Concorde lands, because it's very wealthy people who go on the Concorde, they make a big uproar. They put a red carpet out, and there are people waiting with champagne, and and it was quite a scene. So I just stood and watched it as it unfolded. The red carpet, there were flashing lights, there were people waiting there to give them gifts, and I'm just watching the people parade out of the plane, and all of a sudden I'd see Sheikh Fadlallah coming off the plane, right? And, at that time we didn't call him Sheikh Fadlallah. He wasn't like, quotes, a sheikh at that time. At least we didn't recognize him as that. But I knew him as being this rich murid of our sheikh, right? And that I said, that's it. Like, this man, I know him, he knows me, and I'm going to tell him my situation, and he's going to reach in his pocket and he's going to roll out $1,000 or whatever it is, because that's nothing for him, and he's going to buy our tickets and we're off, right? That was in my mind. It was going to happen. So we get to him and he goes, "MashaAllah, Mustafa, what are you doing here?" And I said, well, this is my chance, right, to tell him. And I told him and I explained to him exactly what happened to us and everything, and I was waiting for him to come up with it, right? And then he reached in his pocket and my expectation grew, and And he pulled out this plastic tasbih, right? Which was the worst looking tasbih I'd ever seen. You know, the aleph, the cotton was all frayed, and the beads were the string had too much space in between. It was almost unusable. And he said, here, take this. He said, say Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakil, and everything will be good. Alhamdulillah, Assalamu alaikum, and he walked away. And that was it, right? Well, I felt very disappointed at that moment. And I was also upset. And I said, and I looked at that tasbih, and I just saw no potential, for what would happen here. So I walked away, and I couldn't get away from my mind about how that transaction just wasn't right. Little did I know, I wasn't right, which is usually the case. So the evening came to pass, and everyone lined up at the same counter that I've been going for 3 days. The same guy is sitting there. And I'm walking to the counter with our luggage, hoping that there'll be a flight available on a standby flight, that 2 people will not show up or something, and we'll be able to get on. But the guy looked, as I approached the counter, he's just going like this. You're not getting on. And I just, for one moment there, I just felt maybe, and then it was no. So I started to turn around, and I had that tasbih in my hand, by the way. All of a sudden he says, what do you have in your hand? And I thought to myself, oh no. Do I really want to explain to this guy what this is? I don't want to get into this, right? I was all being very stingy and grumpy, and so I said, it's a rosary, right? Because I thought he was Christian or something, and I thought, well, he'll understand that it's a rosary. And then he said, no, it's not a rosary. I said, okay. And then I walked up to him and I said, here, look, it's a tasbih. And he said, what are you saying on that tasbih? And I said, Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakil. That Allah is my best protector and my best friend and protector. And all of a sudden, tears came to his eyes. And he said, are you Muslim? And I said, yes. I said, I'm a Muslim. He says, come here. And I came close to him. And his name was Alan. He said, my real name is Ali. And I'm hiding the fact that I'm a Muslim because I'm afraid about my job. And those, things were like that also in those days. He said, why are you going to England? I said, well, I'm going because we're new Muslims, and we want to study our deen, and we want to improve our condition and so on. And he said, give me your tickets. So he took our tickets right then and there. And in those days, they had little stickers, right? They could stick a sticker where your seat would be or where your cabin would be. He took our tickets and he transformed them instantly into 2 first-class tickets on the top deck of the 747, right? He said, where's your luggage? We gave him our luggage. Within 2 minutes, we were sitting on the plane in first class, right? Completely, I was so ashamed of myself, but overwhelmed and awed by that moment. And Tiku and Noor and I sat there, and we just couldn't believe that we were sitting there. And the first class compartment, the upper deck, which is like the upper deck first class, was starting to fill up, but there were some seats still available. And this man came on board, checking off the passengers as they do on a clipboard. And I looked at him and I said, aren't you going to get in trouble for doing this? Is there going to be a problem? And he just grabbed my head in his hand. He said, brother, he said, Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakil. And he said, have a good flight. And that's it. And that's how we got, to England that's how I actually left the country for the first time, with the intention of being with my sheikh and a community of people that I could be with. And in fact, the first person who I stayed with and who opened their homes to me was Yakuta. I stayed with her and her husband in Norwich in their house in 1977, I think it was, a long time ago. So the interesting thing to examine here, and I know you all have done this, or you've done it already, but I want to just take this last few minutes, I think I only have a few minutes left, is to see that we think and imagine our own narrative of life all the time. We are all playing out a certain expectation, familiar and safe sort of life. But we never know really what the outcome of anything is. That in this story, I took this young man with me because my sheikh asked me to do it, and I did it with all the best intention that it'll be fine. But I didn't plan for all the aircraft to be grounded, and here was it could have been not tragic, I wouldn't call it tragic, but a difficult and inconvenient situation. I may not be able to go because all these fights, but yet the unfolding of what Allah wanted to happen. You couldn't plan this. You couldn't plan for me to be standing at the gateway when Sidi Fadlallah came out. And I'm sure he didn't even calculate in his own mind that he would give me this tasbih and I'd get on the plane. He just gave it to me as a inspiration. It was something that came to his heart. So this is a key thing to think about and to reflect on. Is acting from your heart, not acting from your pockets or from pleasing another person or acting in a way that you feel you're expected to act, but act from a place within you which is from the Ruh, a spontaneous being that's responding to the moment without all the baggage of calculation. That's why they said the Prophet ﷺ, he didn't calculate. People think that was because he couldn't count. It's not. I don't accept that. He worked for Khadija, his wife, going to Syria and so many places doing business. You can't tell me he didn't count. He had to count to do business. But what it meant that he didn't count is he didn't calculate his life. He lived in the moment. He lived by inspiration, by what Allah was putting in his heart at every single moment. He was in that way. So this story, and inshallah there'll be some more coming, that reflects the living dynamic of decree and destiny. There is an overarching decree which none of us can move, none of us exist outside of that decree. But there's also destiny, and your interaction with it, that you have something to do with that. Your state, your intention, your willingness to submit, there's this dynamic which is uncalculable. It has to do with inspiration, not with calculation. That you then interact with Allah's decree, so you harmonize, and that decree and your destiny become one. That's what we want. To combine Allah's decree, His will, with our destiny in a willful submission, in a conscious submission and recognition and acknowledgement of Allah khairu makirin. Allah is the best planner. Allah is the one who decrees. So that's it. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ehdina as-siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladhina an'amta alayhim. غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين الحمد لله رب العالمين